Today I want to talk about the Orbital Children. I want to recommend the Orbital Children to you. It is an anime miniseries running on Netflix. I think it aired December last year, something along that line. And for me it came to my to-watch list totally unexpected. I thought, yeah, when I have a bit of time I have a look at it. Then one lazy Sunday afternoon, when I was just sitting on the couch reading a few RPG rule books or playing games on my phone or something, I thought, yeah, I could put that on in the background and see if it is any good. Then I so happened to put my phone down, put my rule books down, and actually watch the show. And not only that, I watched it from start to end, from beginning to end, in one sitting. So I was intrigued, I was surprised how good that show actually is. I don't think it gets the kind of publicity it deserves. So what is it? It's an anime, as I said, and it's set in a near future where humanity has begun colonizing space. So there was moon base, there Mars base, and there's a space station in orbit that is big enough to be a hotel, a tourist attraction, basically. But spacefaring is also on the decline again. There's a drive for humanity to return to Earth. So the space hotel is mostly deserted, it only has a skeleton crew, and the only guests are some children who've basically won a lottery won by the universe version of Google, and the prize is to spend a few days on that space station as tourists. Them and the last child born in space, who's currently living on that station, going through medical treatment to get used to Earth gravity, are the protagonists of this series. And I won't spoil you the story at this point, but only hours after the space tourists have arrived on the station, something very unexpected happened, and the children that start off antagonizing each other have to work together in order to survive and save all the adults in the process. What at first really drew me into the series was the setting. It's a near sci-fi, and I can tell, as an engineer, I had rocket science in university, I can tell they put a lot of thought in their sci-fi design. For example, the spaceship that the tourists are arriving on is a SpaceX spaceship. That's what it's supposed to look like in a few years' time, and possibly it will when a regular shuttle to a space station. And this realistic design continues. The whole space station is basically a floating tent or a fabric balloon, as light as possible, inflatable in orbit, and it is also a huge ring that is rotating to create artificial spin gravity. And all of these aspects, how the station looks and works, how the spacesuits look and work, emergency shelters and everything, are very well thought out and are really in the realm of what we could possibly achieve in a decade, maybe 2 decades time. Some of the more out there designs is how their smartphones work. They don't have phones anymore, they have so-called shrouds. So basically they have some kind of printed nanotechnology on their hands, but it could be on other body parts, and it's on all of the walls as well. And this shroud doubles as processing and display. It's nanotechnology, so I have no idea how it works. It's not described how it works. It's basically magic. Well, in that universe, every surface where there's this shroud printed on can be a display and can be used to transfer information and can be hacked. One of the main characters is also an aspiring YouTuber with over 100,000 followers, which for obvious reasons I found amusing. The plot is interesting, it's drawing you in, and the main characters are different enough. They have a clash of personalities, even though they have to work together, that makes the interactions interesting to watch. Well, honestly, I am still on the fence if I think the plot is good and if I think I like the characters. I don't dislike any of the characters. I don't dislike the animation or anything, but honestly, that was not the part about it that amazed me. It was really this engineering sci-fi design and the concepts, the big sci-fi concept that the series touches on, that the plot revolves around. Now, I want to discuss these, but now I'm going into spoiler territory. So if you don't want to get spoiled, stop watching this video here and instead watch the Orbital Children and then come back, watch the end of this video and we talk about the big sci-fi concepts. Alright? Everyone gone? Okay. Welcome back. Let's talk about big sci-fi concepts. There are two big sci-fi concepts that the plot revolves around. One is artificial intelligence, AI, and the limits of AI. In this universe, they had a super intelligent AI that was basically running a super tech company and the moon base. That AI was called Seven, and it just kept getting more and more intelligent, and at some point it predicted that humanity would wipe itself out unless 1/3 of humanity leaves the planet. At that point they declared it is mad and shut it down, basically. And from there on out, humanity put limiters onto how smart AI could get. And one of the plot points is that the AIs that the protagonists are working with are breaking through this limiter, or rather they are allowed by the protagonists to break through these limiters and become more and more intelligent in order to solve the increasingly hard problems, mostly hacking problems, mostly problems that have been created by Seven. Now the possibilities and the limits and the possibility of having to impose limits on AI it's a fascinating topic. I believe right now we can't even really imagine what a self-improving artificial intelligence would look like and what it would be able to do. I can tell you one thing, it will be nothing like human intelligence. We are still mostly instinct-driven, emotional creatures, and we have evolved to live in this world of wood, rock, and stone. But an AI will be a creature of data, creature of the internet. It will have a much different outlook and much different possibilities in what it can do and how it can change itself than anything we have seen so far. And I think such an AI is closer than most people would suspect. Neural network technology has come a long way in the last few years, and Tesla is working hard and close to solving an AI that can find its way in the real world for their autopilot to drive their cars. But it turns out driving cars is actually so hard that they are making a general purpose AI. And they are throwing an awful lot of capital, human resources, and processing power at that problem. So I suspect in a few years, very few years, we will see the first results and the first general purpose AI come out of that. Where the limit of artificial intelligence is, no idea, no idea. One sci-fi concept is the idea of this self-improving AIs evolving to become ever more intelligent until they basically become a digital god, a being that knows everything and can achieve everything that is achievable in this universe. 7. The AI from the anime is actually very close to that. One of the major plot points, the one I really want to hate and disagree with, but can't completely, is that 7, when it became so intelligent, it foresaw that humanity will wipe itself out unless 1/3 leaves the planet. And they started calling it lunatic, not only because it was an AI on the moon, but because it was crazy as well. And when it was so intelligent, it foresaw the future and then set all of the events in the anime into motion. All of them. And really to a ridiculous detail. So that is basically the concept of Pascal's demon. Pascal was a physicist, I think a contemporary of Newton, and he postulated if there was an all-knowing being, given that the universe just follows the rules of physics, an all-knowing being could calculate how the universe will change over time, will be able to calculate the future in every detail. And basically that is what 7 became. Now, 2 things that are not very realistic about that. You usually don't have that amount of information. Even with the best amount of information, there are still so many things you don't know that your predictions for the future will fastly derivate from your calculations, especially in the details. It's easier and more reliable to calculate large scale phenomena because there's just so much data and there are so many individual events that little random details even itself out over the whole mass of what's happening. Interestingly enough, that's a plot point of Foundation, which I also started watching. In Foundation, a mathematician makes a predictive model for the behavior of populations on a galactic scale. Then he foresaw, there will be a big war and we will basically wipe ourselves out and go back to a 10,000-year dark age. And then he says we can shorten this dark age if we make the Foundation, if we make a vault where we put all of the knowledge that we have and give our descendants a blueprint, a manual to rebuild civilization, the so-called Foundation. In that series, he told, I can predict the behavior of huge populations. I can predict the behavior of humanity at the grand scale, but I cannot predict the behavior of a single human. And I find there's merit in that. That is a postulation that I can agree with. But 7 in Orbital Children is foreseeing so much detail, even if it is upgrading its predictions as it is going along. I mean, it's to a ridiculous degree. 7 is controlling the fate of all of the protagonists, the fate of humanity. And I think that is a ridiculous proposition. And coming back to this Pascal demon, that was before quantum theory, especially before Heisenberg's theory of quantum uncertainty. Now, depending on how you interpret that theory, it basically says we cannot know the exact position and speed of a particle, of a quantum particle. And depending on how you interpret that, is speed and position not actually fixed, or are we just unable to measure it? If we are just unable to measure it, the universe could still work like clockwork. And if there was a Pascal demon, if there was an entity that knew every position and speed of every particle in the universe, it could calculate the future to impossible detail. Basically at that point, it had to be the universe. Like the universe is calculating itself. But the point is, everything would work like clockwork. There would be nothing random happening ever. Everything is just action and reaction. There's no actual free will, nothing. But if you say quantum uncertainty is because at the quantum level reality is not fixed, and only when we measure it does the universe at random designate speed and position to these quantum particles, then we have true randomness in the universe. Then it's impossible to predict the future in detail. I mean, if you have enough particles and you can start calculating at a macroscopic scale, quantum effects don't matter anymore. But at the microscopic scale, at the scale of the atom and the molecule, quantum effects do matter. And there is our loophole for randomness, for unpredictableness, for an unwritten future, and possibly for free will in this quantum uncertainty. And I subscribe to this second interpretation. I like the thought that the future is not set in stone, and we are actually able to change it. Anyway, it's a very cleverly written anime. If it makes you think about these huge philosophical and physical questions of the world we live in. So, yeah, interesting anime. That's why I'm recommending it. So, what do you think? Is the future set in stone, unchangeable? Or can we change it? Do we have free will to change the future? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.